Civ 6 was never meant to be a competitive game. There's too much RNG, the games last too long, and the netcode is barely functional. All of these issues are further compounded in a 10-player free-for-all format where there are no teammates to rely on. In order to cope with these conditions, the top players of CPL typically operate under an unspoken set of rules, an implicit code of conduct that keeps everyone moral and sane. This is the story of what happens when those rules break down. When men let their worst impulses take over. The date is July 16th, 2024. A CPL free-for-all lobby is entering the later stages of the game. Our ally and loyal trading partner Rome, played by the player Kakamrad, is under attack by the dastardly Barbar, playing as Tokugawa. An unscrupulous opportunist, Barbar's never been afraid to get his hands dirty. Just one game prior, he had waited until another player's exoplanet expedition was in the air before unleashing an onslaught of nuclear missiles on our cities in a vicious late-game 2v1 where he teamed up against us with the help of a Norway player. In this game, too, Norway will play a major role. In the far eastern reaches of the map, the player Kingu occupies his time with picking on the weakest, newest players in the lobby, conquering their cities and pillaging their land in order to compensate for his lackluster empire building. Having wiped out Congo, he now turns his sight onto the helpless Ottoman Empire. Allied with Kingu is, undoubtedly, the most insidious figure of all, Andrew, the current rank 1 player on the all-time CPL free-for-all leaderboard. Despite being the highest rated player, however, few would consider Andrew an actual contender for the greatest of all time. His high status is achieved only as a result of his lowly character. This man's made a reputation for himself for playing in the easiest, lowest elo lobbies he can find, farming novices for meager amounts of rating points. By preying on the weakest, most vulnerable members of the Civ 6 multiplayer community, this veritable elo pedophile has managed to usurp the rank 1 spot on the CPL leaderboard for years. For once, however, it seems Andrew has finally bitten off more than he can chew. At the moment, he is currently preoccupied with fending off a surprise attack from the true wildcard of this game, Mikado. A French competitive player with little regard for free-for-all games, he would ordinarily never play in a lobby like this. However, as part of a special event hosted by the French streamer Malm, many of the top competitive players in France have been taking turns playing CPL free-for-all games on the same account, switching players mid-game. Earlier, the CPL regular Ulhas commanded the Sumerian Empire, but now Mikado is in control. Native to the wild hellscape that is CivFR, human constraints like morality and basic decency are completely foreign to him. Lastly, like all good stories, we have a protagonist. Me, Herson. I have many titles: the savior of CPL, the greatest ally there ever was, the peacemaker, and the justice bringer. I protect my friends, fight for justice, and am, above all else, extraordinarily humble. In this game, I once again assume the role of hero, valiantly entering into the fascism government in order to rush to the aid of my ally, protecting the Roman people from the Japanese scourge. Our position in this game is excellent. We have the lead in technologies completed, the best stat line in the lobby, and our culture victory looms inevitably on the horizon. So, when the game is paused on turn 93 and the players begin discussing the possibility of conceding, it's only natural to assume that we'd be the player getting first place. Andrew, however, has other plans. Where an ordinary person's psyche would store its honor, humility, and morality, Andrew's subconscious mind is filled with nothing but a corrupt desire for rating points. Shamelessly, Andrew begins to spin his web of lies. Herson's strength is all fake, his stats are just for show. If we all gang up on him, he'll fold in an instant. the game will end faster. In an egregious display of equal parts immorality and gullibility, Mikado and Kingu agree to Andrew's plan. Just like that, a peace deal is struck, ending the war between Sumeria and Gaul that had lasted a mere 3 turns. In a single moment, the whole world had turned against us. The pragmatic thing to do would be to turn our army around, hunker down, and prepare for the incoming attack. However, we are not without honor. A promise was made to protect our ally, and we intend to follow through on it. We liberate the city of Antium and continue our march into Japanese territory. In spite of recent developments, this game is still winnable. It may be a long shot, but where there's a will, there's a way. First off, we need to defend ourselves. To do this, we'll need an entirely new army, designed from the ground up to be the ultimate defensive force. And, in the late game of Civ 6 multiplayer, there is no class of unit better suited to the task of defense than fighters. By creating as many of these units as possible and deploying them along our border, we can quite literally create an impenetrable wall of planes. Enemy land units cannot pass under deployed planes, nor can they harm them, meaning Sumeria's antiquated army of tanks and artillery are essentially sitting ducks. To add to this, we're able to stack the Fascist Legacy policy card with Democracy's Their Finest Hour card, granting all of our units a whopping +10 combat strength in friendly territory. Mikado's army of uncultured Sumerian swine stands no chance against such overwhelming governmental superiority. There remains, however, the looming threat of Andrew and Kingu. Every turn, the Norwegian Empire conquers more Ottoman territory, inching closer and closer to our border. In the north, Andrew's military engineers are hard at work constructing a railroad to our land, as his cities begin to work on the Manhattan Project. We aren't going to be able to hold out forever. Our only hope is to win a culture victory, and fast, and the only way we're going to do that is via the power of rock and roll. By pillaging as much faith as we possibly can from Japan's land, and using that faith to purchase rock bands, we're able to fuse our military conquest with our cultural conquests. Gameplay paralleling reality as Japanese suffering gives rise to rapid advances in the arts. At this point, Mikado's army has been just about completely wiped out by our fleet of jet fighters, but Andrew and Kingu are finally knocking on our door. At first glance, Kingu's army seems no different than Mikado's, but looks can be deceiving. Unlike the Sumerian forces from earlier, the Norwegian forces have been busy, and many of them are sporting multiple promotions. You see that little 2 next to some of the helicopters? That indicates that they have 2 promotions, likely meaning they'll be able to pillage our tiles at the cost of only 1 movement point. As helicopters have a whopping 5 movement points in BBG and completely ignore all terrain costs, letting even a single one of these through would be disastrous. While our planes are occupied with picking off the horde of promoted helicopters and modern armors trying to break through our southern border, Andrew is free to start using his own planes to try to punch holes in our defensive line. The wall of fighters that had, to this point, been impenetrable is now in serious danger, as attack after attack rains down on them from Andrew's own planes. To make matters worse, we are running desperately low on strategic resources. With only a single source of aluminum in our land, and absolutely no oil, we're severely limited in the number of units we're able to deploy. Fortunately, the Better Balanced Game mod buffs hangars and airports to both grant +1 aluminum per turn each, but being forced to spend such an enormous amount of our resources on constructing these buildings is severely hampering the construction of our actual military. Further complicating matters, it seems as though every spy in the world has descended upon our lands. Despite running the cryptography policy card and a counter-spy to reduce their odds of success, enemy spies are still managing to slip through the cracks and pilfer gold and great works alike. Finally, on turn 108, we're able to buy the world's first giant death robot, but it's too little, too late. Andrew finally manages to punch a hole in our defensive wall of jet fighters and slips a unit through to capture one of our cities, razing it to the ground. Things only get worse from here. Soon, nuclear missiles begin raining down on our land, and our resources are too overstressed to produce sufficient anti-air defense to cover all of our cities. The proud city of Sugaba Nuts is the second to fall, followed shortly thereafter by the humorously named Kangaba. Our giant death robots try valiantly to defend, but the sheer volume of enemy units is overwhelming. To make matters worse, Kingu begins launching nuclear strikes of his own, and Norwegian giant death robots make their debut on the battlefield. However, even as opportunities to pillage Japan's land begin to dry up, and our cities begin to burn, there's still hope. As our rock bands become more experienced, their album sales continue to grow, and our Culture Victory countdown timer continues to loom ominously on the sidebar. One rock band in particular reigns supreme above all the others, Medieval Beach. The most successful musical artist this world's ever seen, this band has reached the point where it's generating ridiculous amounts of tourism for every performance. But this rock band isn't content to just help us win Culture Victory. It's also playing a key role in our defense, thanks to a little promotion by the name of Popstar. This promotion causes Medieval Beach to award us with gold equal to 25% of the tourism it generates for every performance. On turn 111, for instance, this rock band performs for a whopping 9,700 tourism, awarding us with 2,425 gold, enough to purchase a giant death robot outright. Even as our cities are being razed, our army of giant death robots continues to grow. With these forces, we're even able to momentarily beat back Andrew's forces and recapture our capital. With GDRs providing anti-air defense to the cities they occupy, our few remaining cities are becoming virtually impossible to strike with nukes. On the cultural front lines, Medieval Beach continues to have stellar performances, printing more gold and hence more giant death robots. For a while, it seems as though we're stabilizing, and our Culture Victory is tantalizingly close. Unfortunately, however, the safety of our GDR anti-air defense is just an illusion. Andrew completes Project Ivy, upgrading his arsenal to thermonuclear missiles with a larger radius of effect, allowing them to damage cities when striking from outside the anti-air coverage of our garrison giant death robots. The last of our cities begin to fall, and all that remains of our once proud empire is our Japanese conquests, an army of giant death robots, and a wildly successful pop rock band by the name of Medieval Beach. But even that, unfortunately, doesn't last very long. On turn 119, Medieval Beach gives their final performance, yielding a staggering 16,000 tourism and 4,000 gold. With this rock band's death, the thread of prophecy is severed, and we no longer stand any chance at a cultural victory. However, the legacy of this rock band lives on, in the form of the giant death robot army their performances funded. With nothing left to defend, the once gentle giants set their sights on Sumeria, rampaging through their land in one final act of mournful vengeance. Andrew's exoplanet expedition is in the air, and it seems his heinous behavior in this game will only serve to further cement his status as the rank 1 player. However, on turn 121, something unexpected happens. Andrew's partner in crime, Kingu, launches an exoplanet expedition of his own. And, unlike Andrew, Kingu actually has the off-world mission technology required in order to construct the laser stations to speed up his victory. In the end, the villainous ringleader of the anti-Herson coalition is undone by the betrayal of his own comrade. On turn 124, Kingu's exoplanet expedition reaches its destination, winning him the game. Ironically, in the final report for the game, Andrew's 4th place finish results in him losing more rating points than anyone else in the lobby. When a player's elo is as unnaturally inflated as his, the system considers anything less than a 1st place a loss. If you enjoyed seeing Andrew lose, then I've got a special announcement just for you. The second CPL free-for-all rank season is coming to a close, and to end off the season, a final game between the top 10 players on the leaderboard has been announced for August 3rd. While the cutoff to qualify is technically still a few days away, it seems unlikely that I'll be able to gain enough ELO to play in the event myself, due to mysterious circumstances. If by some miracle I qualify, I'll be participating, but otherwise, I'll be live streaming the game as a caster over at twitch.tv/Herson100. So, mark your calendars for August 3rd, 12 p.m. EST, and if you're feeling especially generous, consider donating to the prize pool by following the link I've put in the description for this video. That's all for now. Herson, signing out.
Bro, what? I clicked on it, it made the noise. Everybody heard that. Everybody heard it make the noise. And it doesn't give me it. And that's my whole turn. Gone. Fuck me. It made the noise. You heard the fucking gold buying noise and it didn't give me it.